We are all aware that basic education is a constitutional right provided for in Article 38 of our Constitution. And in fulfillment of the mandate of free, compulsory, universal basic education, government has committed to providing opportunities for all children, irrespective of their gender, their geographical location, their socioeconomic status, so that they're able to access quality basic education. District assemblies are at the center of the provision of basic education. Per our tertiary education law, it is the mandate of district assemblies to build schools and provide education infrastructure. The challenge has been that over the years we've seen a virtual stagnation in the number of basic schools being built. In many municipalities, we are hardly building even one school in a year. And as the research has pointed out, in Adenta, for instance, in the past 4 years, we've been able to build only 2 primary schools. If you have a municipality where over 90% of basic schools belong to private owners, it limits the ability of the urban poor to have access to basic education, which is free. And so this research and convening is aimed at finding innovative approaches to financing basic education, especially basic education infrastructure, both soft and hard, and I mean decks and buildings in local assemblies. Bearing in mind that we have gotten to a point in our life, in our national career or national life, where the Ghana Education Trust Fund and other national level funds that usually supported the development of basic education infrastructure have either been capped or, have declined in terms of their strength. And that is why it makes it very, very relevant for local government stakeholders, education stakeholders, and the entire, citizenry to have a conversation around innovative ways of supporting district assemblies to live up to the mandate of providing basic schools so that the poor, urban or rural, will be able to access basic education. And let's not forget that according to the Ghana Statistical Service, 1.4 million children are not in school in Ghana, out of which 400,000 have never set, out of which 1 million have never set their foot in school. The only way we can ensure that the 1.4 million children aged between age 4 and 17 have an opportunity to enjoy an education is for district assemblies to expand their capacity to build more schools so that the poor and vulnerable who are unable to pay for private education can access public basic education. So it's my expectation that at the end of this session, we come out with concrete actions, concrete commitments that will collectively inure to the benefit of the citizenry by way of local governments committing more investment in partnership with corporate Ghana in support of expanding basic education infrastructure and by extension access to equitable basic education in Ghana. Thank you very much.
Why Tema and Adenta?
Tema and Adenta were selected for a unique reason. Tema because it represents one of the metropolitan assemblies, but Adenta is unique because Adenta is a municipality where about 90% of schools belong to private school owners. It has close to 250,000 inhabitants. About 240,000 people live in Adenta, and that was almost more than doubling the population between 2010 and 2021 census. So if you have a municipality where population is more than doubling over a 10-year period, which is a lower middle income municipality, and only 9% of basic schools belong to government, then you should be concerned because the structure there obviously suggests that the urban poor will be excluded. No wonder we have schools with class sizes averaging 80 in Ashi, etc. And so Adenta was selected for a unique reason. In addition to its population growth or its high population density, issues of overcrowding, and the lowest share of public sector in basic education is seen in Adenta, as I mentioned. Only 9% of the schools there belong to government. And so we selected these 2 municipalities for these 2 unique reasons. But I must admit that I am happy that throughout the 2 years of the research, both municipalities, I mean the metro and the municipality, all exceeded their revenue targets. So it is not always an issue of not mobilizing adequate revenue. I think there are also issues relating to prioritized investment of revenues and the extent to which government commitment at the national level to commit up to 20% of revenues to education is being implemented at the local level too. And so, yes, it is important to raise more revenue, but I acknowledge that these two local governments have made significant investments, have made significant strides and investment in their revenue mobilization drive, manifesting in increasing revenues over the years. But we are yet to see a significant chunk of these increasing revenues going into basic education. And that is also one of the reasons why we are here. Because if government says they're going to commit between 15 and 20% of national revenue to education, we expect local governments to do the same. Because it is through local governments that government can realize the SDG 4 agenda by 2030.
Get Fund has complained that their monies have been capped 40%. What are your thoughts? What are your recommendations?
Well, Get Fund was capped since 2017. And this presentation is actually giving us an idea about the implications of the capping of Get Fund on stored projects, on ongoing projects, and then also on projects that perhaps never took off. Okay. And so we've seen schools under trees in Adenta, at Adenta community, because the project they're being financed by Get Fund has not been able to, see the light of day in terms of full completion. So at least we've seen how the capping of Get Fund has affected, the completion of projects. But most importantly, we must situate the issue of Get Fund capping within the modern day reality. The reality is that Get Fund capping is difficult to be reversed. We have been the number one advocate of the uncapping of Get Fund, but the reality is that the capping is part of the capping has been tied to part of the deliverables in the Memorandum of Economic and Financial Policies of the IMF program. And so you have tied more or less between Get Fund and the IMF program is an umbilical cord. And so the uncapping cannot happen. It's a key conditionality which the government of Ghana presented to the IMF. What we must focus more on is the realignment of the already capped amount. Because capping means that government is taking about 60% of Get Fund into a pool and reallocating it to other prioritized sectors. So let's focus on the pool, because there are 12 other funds that are being capped, like the National Health Insurance Levy, like the Student Loan Trust Fund, and other funds that you are aware of. So let's see how we can influence the allocation from that pool to education. And in terms of the uncapping, it can't happen within the medium term unless the IMF program has ended. That's the reality.